The allotments north of the building.
This is a full planning application for residential development of 53 dwellings, which are a mixture of detached, semi-detached, terraced and apartments. 13 are affordable units, which include a block of 3 terrace properties, a middle terraced house with market housing either side, 2 semi-detached properties and 7 apartments. 8 of the affordable units are 2-bedroom and 5 are 1-bedroom. Site's about a mile from the town centre and close to the George Eliot Hospital. At the minute the site is overgrown with brambles and has a steep slope down to the canal. There are houses and bungalows to the south-west of the site and allotments to the north-west. It includes a working boatyard with a number of buildings, one of which is locally listed. The boatyard is to remain in business after the development is completed. To the south-east of the site are the Bull Ring and Bridge Street, and on the opposite side of the canal is Chevrolet Place, which is a sheltered housing complex, and the rear of some of the houses in Sheffield Street. The towpath is to the opposite side of the canal to the development. An extension of time has been agreed with the applicant until the application is determined. The local character stone retaining wall, which can be seen all along the Bull Ring, is to remain. The National Planning Policy Framework puts the emphasis on the presumption in favour of development if it's in a sustainable location, and there are no material considerations to indicate otherwise. There are bus routes in close proximity to the site, and the site is within easy walking and cycling distance to the town centre. The proposal will provide development on part previously developed land, which is a key strategy of the NPPF. The land is also within the existing urban town settlement area, and is therefore considered that the site is sustainable and appropriate for residential use. The borough does not have a 5-year housing land supply, and this holds significant weight in favour of applications. As I mentioned earlier, 25% of the units are to be affordable, and the affordable housing is largely pepper-potted throughout the site. The site was assessed as part of the Strategic Housing Land Assessment as both suitable for development and deliverable. The proposal is predominantly 2-storey, but does make use of the slope of the land, which means that a number of the houses are townhouses, which are 3 storeys to the front and 2 to the rear. The apartments are 3 storeys with rooms in the roof to provide parking at ground level. There is a mixture of house designs, and a number of the properties have dual frontages to improve the design throughout the site. The design is in keeping with the area, the roof heights are in keeping with the surrounding properties, and the properties fronting both the balancing basin and the canal have been designed to take advantage of these frontage. The site complies with the local residential design guide in terms of design, scale and character. The distance standards are set out in the residential design guide are met in terms of the existing neighbouring properties. That's in terms of separation distance of 20 metres from window to window and 7 metres from windows to private amenity space. The proposal exceeds those requirements. Plot 6 is close to the boundary with number 15, the Bull Ring, but the design has incorporated the natural slope to reduce the impact, and there are no habitable windows at the first floor level overlooking the property. Some of the distances within the site are tight, but where the distance standards are not met, they're across public space such as parking, courts or roads, which is acceptable in accordance with the residential design guide. There is now no objection from Warwickshire County Council highways, subject to conditions which are included on your addendum, and double yellow lines and parking bays are outside of the site to the junction. The site is not within a flood zone and provides a balancing basin, therefore the Environment Agency has raised no objection, subject to conditions set out on the agenda. A Phase 1 ecology survey has not identified any key habitats or species, and appropriate mitigation can be provided by a condition as set out on the agenda. The Council's Environmental Health officers are confident that any contamination issues on the site or noise issues arising from the boatyard can be mitigated by condition, which includes a noise barrier to the boatyard. The Canals and River Trust, part of the owners of the site, have worked closely with the boatyard to ensure any noise is mitigated and will provide the new equipment to reduce the noise. It sets out the planning obligations. As you'll see from the table, the contributions that have been agreed cover education, libraries, highways, including what I mentioned earlier about the yellow lines, the on-street parking, a new bus stop on Greenmore Road, contributions to play and open space, and 25% of the units are affordable. The site is in a sustainable and deliverable location, and any impact to residential properties, highways and the environment can be mitigated by conditions as set out on the agenda and on the addendum or within the legal agreement. It is therefore recommended that the recommendation is that the delegated agreement be given to the Head of Development Control to approve the application subject to a legal agreement and the conditions, as I say, set out on the agenda and the addendum.
Okay, thank you. Catherine. First speaker is Councillor Connick.
Thank you, Chair. This item obviously has come up before, and before I was allowed to speak on it before, unlike today's other item. Going through the paperwork, one of the key things always is affordable housing. We're actually going to provide 14 affordable dwellings on this site, and it's very important that they're provided throughout the development of the site and not just at the end. We've seen far too many applications where they're allowed to sell 85% of the market housing before they start on the affordable housing. So we have got a shortage of affordable housing, so I really hope the committee will condition that we bring the affordable housing early or equally spaced throughout the development. Going on through the paperwork, it says we haven't got a 5 years housing supply, which is one reason for approving this. This is clearly a debatable point, because we're currently building 200 homes a year and we have about 2,000 plus sites allocated. So really, it's a bit of a red herring that we have to rush. And the main thing I actually want to talk about on this application is sustainable transport links, because it is actually very close to the hospital, and from the hospital we'll have the new Bermuda railway station, and there's great opportunities for this site being connected by public transport and by walking and cycling. But if you were to cycle from this site to the hospital, you have curbs, signs in all sorts of wrong places. There is not a nice link into the north side of the hospital for this development. And if you were to walk or cycle into town, it's very pleasant going along the canal towpath if you're going to the north end of the town, say to Lidl's, whatever. But we do not have access at the Cat Gallows because it's been blocked up, it's been broken through. So there's massive improvements we need to sort out the Cat Gallows, which would not be expensive. We're talking tens of thousands, a couple of tens of £1,000 to put a ramp in and an anti-motorbike barrier. And these things should be part of the application. The Cat Gallows, it's a crime that an access that's been available for 100 years is being blocked up. And it's a directly useful route to this site on the canal. So I do hope we sort out some sustainable transport issues. And the bit about the cycle route to Hinckley, Leicester and everywhere that's round is totally fictitious. You cannot cycle most of the canal path to Hinckley. I don't know if anyone's been down the Ashbury Canal. It's not very cyclable unless you're on a mountain bike. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any points of clarification? Alan Baxter. Press the big button.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Where's mine go? That's mine. Oh, yeah, sorry. This is mine. Okay. First of all, I learned recently that Neaton and Bedworth Borough Council had an allotment strategy team. Where were they when these plans were being drawn up? There's a former allotment site being built on, and there's no access being provided to the active allotment site behind the development. So this is very much an epic fail on their part. The Canal and River Trust are named on the planning application, so it's safe to assume they will be benefiting financially from the development. So the question is, where is the Canal and River Trust money going? It's evidently not being spent on the Boot Wharf quayside, which will remain badly eroded and overcrowded. And for information, the Nuneaton and Bedworth has about 12 miles of canal, two major junctions, Marston Junction with the Ashley Canal and Hawkesbury Junction with the North Oxford Canal. And because of this, Nuneaton and Bedworth is centred on a major tourist canal area, with about half a dozen hire boat firms active. The Ashley Canal is a major draw for holiday makers. They have to pass through Nuneaton and Bedworth to get there. Nuneaton can capitalise on this with a rejuvenated quayside at Boot Wharf. It will give the tourist a service stop, and they may well stay a day or two to shop in town, use the market, or even visit a pub. A proper water point with dustbins and an Elsan toilet disposal point would also go a long way to doing this. It would also give the dog walkers and casual towpath users somewhere to put waste, other than in the canal or a hedge. The 10 black sacks of rubbish collected over 250 yards 3 weeks ago by the UKIP parliamentary candidate is testament to this. I personally collect 2 to 3 bags a week from the water around me. This may be why a lot of seasoned boaters call the town Scum-Eaton. It's an image the town desperately needs to shrug off. Now, if you put yourself in the boots of a Stratford-upon-Avon councillor, if they had a similar opportunity to encourage tourism, they would be on it like a starving dog on a pork chop. This is also an opportunity to extend mooring down the Greenmoor Road allotments. If the Nuneaton and Bedworth Council collude with Canal and River Trust, I am sure that these could be put in as proper residential moorings with addresses. These would then qualify for new homes bonus and council tax, in addition to easing mooring congestion presently seen at the wharf. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any points of clarification? No? In that case, Katrina Solinsky.
Alright. The junction of the Bullring to College Street was one of the junctions highlighted in the Bermuda Connectivity Project as a critically congested. The Coton Arches Junction, Banana Bridge Island and the Greenmoor Road Island were also highlighted. This site is surrounded by critically congested roads. Since this road data was published, this council has granted planning permission for Galley Common Zoo, Galley Common Plough Hill Road, and for the council houses in Robinson's End. Hundreds of houses worth of extra traffic added to critically congested infrastructures already. Warwickshire County highways are only silent on this, as they only consider extra traffic from new planning permissions up to the point in time of submission of plans for a site. These several hundred new homes since granted are not accounted for. It falls therefore to this council to bridge this unfortunate technical gap and to bring the existence of these several hundred houses into play. It is possible for the assembled councillors to ask for a fresh transport assessment before passing judgment on this application. The County Council has just conducted a fresh and widespread survey of the town. Let's take an opportunity to review this and see what it says. If a final decision is to be made today, then I would ask that the councillors to either abstain from voting or vote to deny permission. I also wish to highlight the lack of primary school places at the moment. I have friends telling me that they have been unable to get school places for their children. Not just in a school of their choice, but any school, because the places simply are not there. More houses before more school places would only make it harder for those struggling now. On the affordability note, noting, that with so many of these homes, how many of these homes are going to be affordable? Can the chair of this meeting explain what their formula for the Leeton Council uses to determine this? The Trades Union Congress uses a figure of 3 times average salary. The average salary in the Leeton begins around £20,000. I can't see a house being built on this development being priced at 60,000 or less. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any points of clarification? No? Anything at this stage, Catherine? I heard the question about affordability, and I think that's a question some of us have some difficulty with at times as well, about the definition of that. And it may be better, I'll put Catherine on the spot and ask, because there's different ways of calculating it.
Yeah, the actual affordable units on this site won't be for sale. There'll be a mixture of 75% affordable rent and 25% shared ownership, and the people who actually occupy those premises, the council gets nomination rights, and that's included in the legal agreement. So it does take people off our council housing waiting list,
Okay,
rather than general market.
thank you. Okay then, so to enable us to move on, can I move the recommendation as printed, which is to approve the planning commission subject to the conditions of printing and the completion of a legal agreement? Is that seconded?
Seconded,
Thank
yeah.
you. Any member? Councillor Conlon.
Thank you, Chair. I broadly think we should be welcoming this application. It does provide 53 quite modest houses in the scheme of things. There's no executive houses in there. It is in a sustainable position, and it's making good use, I think, of a piece of land which should probably just sit there, becoming more and more infested with brambles. What does concern me a bit is the positioning of the social housing within the site, because most of it is at the far end. This includes the block of 9 flats. What is my overriding concern is the traffic conditions on the bordering itself. For those of you not familiar with the area, it is, well, it says in the paperwork that it's not all that busy, but if you go there in the morning and in the evening, or then it's visiting time at the hospital, it can get very, very busy. It is the main route in and out of the Edward Street area. It is a bus route, so you have not just the normal commuter traffic, but the buses as well. This is obviously could cause problems in the longer term. I think those probably have been adequately mitigated by the provision of yellow lines and parking bays outside the old Wharf Club. There's supposed to be yellow lines there at the minute, but they've become so eroded that most motorists who seem to park there have ignored them. The major issue for me is the short-term impact whilst this development is going on. If the cars are allowed to continue parking as they are at the moment, and you have the large number of heavy trucks which will be needed, particularly in the first few weeks because of the nature of the site to remove earth, then I can see there being some chaos ensuing. I understand that the County Council have said they will put yellow lines in, but I think it is essential really that they are put in from the word go. And I think that condition 23, which is to do with the way the programme is sort of arranged in time, should limit the amount of traffic in the first instance or control the amount of traffic in the first instance. I mean that the boatyard traffic isn't causing yet another issue by being especially using a separate entrance. So overall, I think most of the issues have been adequately addressed, and I do think it's important that the County Council is prevailed upon to get their yellow lines and other measures in there as soon as possible. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, darling.
Okay, thank you. Any other members? Councillor Hickey.
Thank you, Chair. I kind of go along the points which Quince made with it. I do have a few concerns about the traffic around that Bullring Day. Every time I come past it, it's quite busy, though, to be fair, it's a bit busy time. So there are some concerns, especially with 53 properties and therefore with 100 cars, aren't you, using that really busy job. My other concern was just a little question really. I noticed from the objections from inland waterways, I couldn't see anywhere they were actually objecting to. I'm not sure I just missed something or it's not in there. So I want to know what the details of that were.
So they just said objection, and they actually didn't say what their objections were.
That's helpful.
Sorry about the
No, you can't.
lines.
No, sorry, you can't. Councillor Phillips.
Yeah, I just wanted clarification, because we would all like to see better use of the canal, etc. But I would imagine that the Canal and River Trust, we have no calling on them as they are applicants. What they wish to do with their money is entirely up to them.
It is. They are a charity, so they do have a mission statement to reinvest any capital receipts that they get, but we don't have any calling on where they spend that on the canal network.
Right. Although we can in future actually get hold of them and sort of say, during this period of building or whatever, put in a grant, application for a
Yeah,
grant.
we can certainly write to them as with this decision.
Councillor Harvey.
Chair, I do notice on the application that there is a justified contribution required from Warwickshire County Council, and some of it, I understand, for expansion of school places and roads, etc. But I see on this and others all the time libraries and a set sum. Do they have to justify this, considering that libraries are being closed in this borough and opening hours are being cut? Does this mean that this 1,000 and whatever it is here and all the other contributions are to be put directly into library provision over and above what we already pay for in the council tax? And if so, do we have evidence of that?
They do have to justify what they request. They request monies to be spent on the central library rather than any branch libraries. And as far as we're aware, yes, that's where the money goes. That's what the legal agreement will say. And the developer's quite right to ask where that money goes and to ask for evidence that it's been spent on libraries.
Thank you.
Thank you. In that case, because that's a really good question, could I ask that, we're at the back end of the municipal year now, could I ask that we do an assessment of what's been received by the council in regards to libraries and ask them where it's actually been spent? And that be reported back to this committee. It seems reasonable. Councillor Bowman.
Chairman, I won't comment on libraries. I've got a direct interest in Bulkington's community library. But I do have a couple of questions. One was, and I think the all-embracing answer we've had about the Canal and River Trust, where they're at liberty to spend where they wish the money which might accrue from this side. I think that's a little too vague for me. We everywhere else we ask for commuted sums to improve the environment on various roads and so on. And it does seem to me that the Canal and River Trust are being the poacher and gamekeeper on this occasion. And I do wish that they would perhaps give an indication of where local improvements could be made to improve the environment for the canal users as much as anyone else. I use the canal towpaths, and I can testify to our objectors' statement about the Ashby Canal and the poor access it has on the banks. I regularly walk that way, and it is extremely difficult at times. You're forced into fields and so on. The other issue for me is something that doesn't seem to be covered, although it makes a sort of sideways reference to the fact that there is a boatyard there, and what sort of repairs or what sort of work is a boatyard carrying out. I've got in mind metal hulls, welding, heavy lifting, all sorts of different things that could happen, use of heavy bituminous paint and so on. And I do wonder about the environment between the canal working and these houses that are going to be built, and that impact. If this was regarded as an industrial site, and I've sat on this committee and listened to accounts of the impact of industry on housing, and we have refused housing in close proximity to what were considered difficult conditions. And there's no mention of this in the application, and I just wondered why.
Two things. The Canal and River Trust are a joint applicant, and as such, they will be contributing to the commuted sums as set out in the legal agreement. Councillor Phillips was right, we can't actually make them spend their money in the locality, but we can certainly write and ask them two things. One, to urge them to spend it in the locality, and two, to ask them where they do spend it. We can only ask if they don't tell us that, you know, we can't make them. The other thing is that we're well aware that there's a boatyard there. We know what the operation of that boatyard is. Our environmental health officers aren't raising any concerns to the development, subject to the mitigation shown as part of the application in the first place and the conditions which they've suggested on the agenda. So they're happy, as technical experts, that it won't cause noise to the new residents of the properties.
Okay, no, there is reference to that on page 15. Is there any other member?
I just want to, I can add it. I think when you look at what happened in the boot inn, I think that if that was reflected on the other side of the bridge, it would make that area something that would rather improve that area. So it's something that, you know, I fully support. I do have the concerns everybody in terms of the type of pattern of the affordable housing. I always have concern about that. And so I hope that, you know, the developer would look at that, or your recommendation, Catherine, that it might be less desirable. Apart from that, I'm supportive of this application.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other member, I'll move to the vote. The recommendation is as printed. All those in favour? Yeah. 11. And against? And abstentions? Okay, that's approved.
Recommendation is carried, Chair.
I believe that deals with all the items in front of us today. Can I thank you for your attendance and declare the meeting closed.